Hello everyone, and welcome to the ABC guide for Final Fantasy VIII. Before we get started, we're going to look at some basic tips to help you get through the game. Obviously, if you're already familiar with Final Fantasy VIII, feel free to skip ahead to any of the sections further along. First up, you should prioritize junctioning magic to your HP, strength, and magic stat. When it comes to prioritizing GF abilities, you want to be looking at the stat junction abilities and also the magic refine abilities. Finally, there is no need to grind in Final Fantasy VIII. The enemies levels scale with yourself, so it all comes down to how you're junctioning that magic to your spells and the kind of tactics you're employing in battle. Once you've junctioned skills to Squall and Custis, the first thing you want to start doing is actually stocking spells. You want to ideally stock 100 of Cure and Blizzard at this point in the game. Blizzard's a perfect spell to junction to magic stat, and that's going to come into great effect with the first boss. Not far from Balam on the western side of the continent is the Fire Cavern, your next destination. When you're prompted to select a time limit, 20 minutes is more than ample. Final Fantasy VIII differs from previous entries by the locales not really having any items to collect. All there really is to find is draw points that allow you to stock spells for free outside of battle. The Fire Cavern is a tutorial that teaches you about elemental weaknesses and resistances. The bombs that you'll face are incredibly weak to ice attacks, so using Blizzard or Shiva will deal huge damage to them. The first boss of Final Fantasy VIII is the Guardian Force Ifrit. Naturally, he is incredibly weak to ice attacks. Obviously at this stage you only have access to Blizzard and Shiva. Blizzard, even if you've junctioned it to your magic stat, doesn't deal a great deal of damage, but is far superior to using your physical attacks. If you had Shiva learn the boost ability, you'll be able to buff her damage in this battle quite significantly. Shiva is ultimately going to be your best method of dealing DPS, and your off character should be using any free turns they have to restore HP. Once Ifrit is defeated, he will join you. Once you've completed your test, return back to Balam Garden and head to the dorm and get changed for the next mission. Don't forget, once you land in Dolet, to rejunction all your characters. The Galbaldian soldiers you face in Dolet handily have the free base elemental materials as well as Cure, so use this opportunity to fully stock up on these spells. You'll encounter little resistance on your way to the transmitter. The snake-like enemy is probably the most interesting you'll face at this point in the game. It has quite a large HP pool for this stage and forces you to use Shiva. The next boss you'll face is Biggs and West. This is actually a bit of a faux battle. You only had to deal a certain amount of damage to either Biggs or Wedge, and eventually the real boss will show itself. The first thing you should do when the real boss, Elvoret, shows itself is draw the GF Siren from it. This is your only opportunity to do so until the very end of the game. As long as you've got a high enough magic stat, you can draw the double spell from Elvoret. It's a very useful spell that allows you to cast magic twice in one turn. It's best employed offensively at this stage in the game. Unfortunately, you're still quite limited in terms of the DPS you can do. GFs are probably still going to be your best way of dealing that damage, but double really helps another character out if you don't want to bog them down using summonings. As far as Elvoret is concerned, it has a pretty average physical attack. Its most potent attack is its wind breath that deals around 150 damage at this stage. It's a good idea not to let your HPs drop too low to try and take advantage of limit breaks, although they can speed up the defeat of this boss. As you try to retreat, you'll be attacked by the XATM. It's a robotic enemy, so it's very weak to thunder attacks. Unfortunately, it is incredibly powerful for this stage of the game. It requires a pretty high level poly to defeat, and so your best option is to deal as much damage as you can using your summonings and spells, and then flee from the battle. You'll be forced to run away from this robot several times on your way to the beach. After a chunk of story, you'll be prompted to go with Custis to the training area. It's populated by Grats, a very weak plant-like enemy that's vulnerable to fire, and also the T-Rexer, which is an incredibly strong opponent, and I don't advise battling it at this stage of the game. The next boss is Granaldo, accompanied with 3 Ronaldo. You can draw Protect from the 3 minions. It's a pretty good spell at this stage in the game. It's some very powerful physical bosses you'll encounter after this point, so make sure you do stock about 10 Protects per character. They'll definitely come in handy. Don't worry about drawing Shell though, it's not useful at this stage of the game. You're much better off waiting till later where it's much easier to stock. All in all, this isn't an intimidating battle. You can easily dispose of this boss and his minions using your GFs and any spells. After defeating Ronaldo, you'll receive some Wizard Stones. These refine into level 3 magic spells, such as Vandaja or Curiga. I wouldn't suggest splitting the stones, they'll serve you far better refined into one spell and then junction to a stat. You can choose to fight for GF Diablos as soon as you obtain the magical lamp item as you leave Balaam Garden for Timber. As difficult as it is, it's highly advisable you obtain this GF now to take advantage of its ability tree. Diablos possesses the magic Demi. It's a high level spell that you may fail to draw. Have your character with the highest magic stat draw Demi and stock it. Once you have stocked several copies, begin to use them against Diablos for high damage. Diablos will also fully cure the character that used Demi. Support your magic caster as he shaves off the majority of Diablos' HP. Once Demi's efficiency dips off, change tactics and unleash your strongest attacks. If you're feeling risky, you can use your limit breaks, but take care as Diablos' physical attack deals very high damage and will take out any low HP character. When it comes to damage mitigation, cast Protect, otherwise you'll just have to cure through the attacks. Buffing with double will help quicken the recovery from Gravager. Safe and steady is the aim of this battle. Keep your HPs topped up and don't take any unnecessary risks and you'll do fine. A couple of abilities you'll want to prioritize with Diablos is Time Mag Refine, HPJ and Mug. Also, if you had the card Refine ability mastered, you can turn Diablos' card into black holes, which can then be refined with the Time Mag ability into Demi. Giving your entire party Demi gives a huge boost to strength for magic as a junction spell. When you reach the town of Balaam, you should receive your first paycheck. Do not spend a gil of it. You'll need 3,000 gil to get to the train to Timber. If you don't have the money, you'll have to run around towns on the world map until you receive your next paycheck. After the Laguna sequence and the introductions with the forest owls, you'll begin the mission to abduct the Galbaldian president. It may look daunting, but as long as you follow some rules, this section is very simple. As Renoa informed you in the briefing, you'll have to enter several codes whilst hanging on the side of the train. In the first instance, Zell and Selfie will tell you when a guard is approaching. In the second instance, you no longer have Zell or Selfie to warn you. You can check yourself, but as long as you act prompt, you should be able to enter 2 codes in between each time both guards have completed their rounds. This battle starts off unassuming enough. Delling is rather weak. Use this time to buff with double and protect. Once Delling has taken enough damage, he will transform into its true form. Jiro Jiro can inflict slow, poison, silence and berserk on your party. It's important to draw and cast Asuna as soon as any status defects occur. Jiro Jiro can very quickly enfeeble your party and leave you vulnerable. It's a good idea to stock some copies of Asuna, but don't make this a priority. As for DPS, Jiro Jiro is very weak to fire, so double and fire is a good combo, and also summon Ifrit throughout the entire battle. As long as you keep on top of debuffing your party, you'll do fine in this battle. If you find Jiro Jiro's physical attacks too punishing, don't hesitate to cast Protect. After the battle, you'll obtain zombie powder that you can refine into the spell Zombie, which is of little use against your enemies but gives a decent boost to HP at this point in the game. There's a lot of story occurring from this point, so we'll catch up once you're off the train. Galbaldia Garden lies just beyond the forest between the cliffs, straight over the bridge. At the Citra ruins, you'll be fighting Esper forces. Some noteworthy enemies are the Gesper, whom you can draw Protect and Shell from, and the Elastoid that you can stock Dispel from, as long as you have a good enough magic stat. Once you reach the end of the ruins, you'll be forced into several consecutive battles against Esper soldiers. Keep on top of your HP before finishing each battle. Make sure you've got 3000 gil in your wallet when you head to the nearby train station. When you reach the capital, your first priority is to head to the general's residence. Here you'll be given a task by one of the guards. If you're just going to get the student ID, you won't need any extra items, but if you intend on getting the GF, you'll definitely want to invest in the map and locator. When you leave Delling City, head northeast and follow the narrow terrain. At the end, you'll reach the tomb of the unknown king. Head into the tomb and move to the next screen and you'll find a sword on the floor. Check this weapon and you'll find the student ID. Jot the number down and return back to the guard in Delling City. You can further explore this area and obtain the GF brothers, but they're not essential and so this guide will omit them. Make sure Squall and Irvine are properly junctioned and you both have access to Essener or the item command. The Iguans can cause gradual petrify on your characters, and unlike Final Fantasy VII, the timer drops down very quickly. Also, make sure you draw Carbuncle from this boss, as this is the only chance you'll have until the end of the game. You'll want to focus your DPS on one Iguan at a time. Once you've dealt with one, the battle will become much more manageable. Keep your HPs up at all times, or mitigate the damage with Protect. Or if you're feeling risky, work in some limits to dispatch this pair of bosses very quickly. You can also use your summonings like Shiva or Quetzalcoatl. Remember, once you regain control of Custis, rejunction all your characters. The sewers are a good place to stock up on some life spells for the following boss fights. You can stock them from the Creeper enemy. This encounter is short-lived. You can draw some extra life spells if you feel you need them, but otherwise focus on your DPS. Don't bother buffing yourself as this is a short-lived fight. Edea is the most powerful adversary you will have fought yet. She uses strong level 3 magic as a sole means of attack. Make sure you recover any lost HP. Edea has Cura, which you should stock some of to supersede your Cure spell. Double should also be used to increase your healing ability. You could tank Edea and cast Shell on your party, or you can totally mitigate damage temporarily by summoning Carbuncle. Edea will expend her next 3 moves dispelling your party. Unfortunately, Dispel will also remove your double buff, but if you're using Carbuncle, you shouldn't need to heal too often. Naturally, Edea has a high magic defense. You can employ your GFs for DPS if your physical attacks are lacking. Note, Edea is immune to Diablos. If you're using the Carbuncle drink, it's very easy to exploit limit breaks and end this battle even quicker. If you didn't get the chance to draw Dispel before, now is a good opportunity to stock around 10 to 15 copies. Once again, you'll have to junction Laguna and Kairos. Stock up your spells if you're starting to run low on Thunder and Fire. The D District Prison is quite a long area to explore. Before heading up, you can head down to the base for some extras, but for the purpose of this guide, we're going to head straight up the stairs. The prison is the perfect place to stock up on Esuna. You may as well fully stock up on it for all 3 characters. It's good for junctioning to your status resistance. Additionally, you'll be using the spell quite a bit from here on out. When you're prompted to junction Zell, it might be a good idea to give him immunity to sleep, as the Galbaldian soldiers here really enjoy using it. In the following segment, you'll be doing a lot of switching backwards and forwards, so we'll catch you up at the next boss. This boss battle is very similar to the mini boss fight with the 2 GIM-52As. It's a good idea to draw and cast haste onto your entire party. This group of enemies can easily ramp up the DPS. The GIM-52As are weak as usual to lightning. Spamming Quetzalcoatl throughout the entire fight is a good option. Otherwise, keep supporting players buffed with double and spam lightning magic. Debuff Meltdown, as it'll leave an ally incredibly vulnerable to physical attacks. Your next objective is to sabotage the missile strike against Garden. You can boost your seed rank by completing your subterfuge without being detected. The first thing, head down the catwalk slightly hidden on the left side of the screen. Then talk to the engineers here to get your next task. Now head to the missile room, speak to the technician by the missile pod and tell him the message to go on ahead. Now head back to the engineers. Now head back to the control room you passed earlier in the base. Inside, search the console and hit the controls repeatedly until the base's power goes down. When you exit the room, select the options that will allow you to squirm out of suspicion. Head back to the missile pod bay and help the soldiers move the pod into place. Now head outside and access the console. Set the error ratio for the missiles to 100% and upload the new parameters. Now head up the stairs to the lower right of the screen. Unfortunately, the game is up and you're rumbled. This mini boss isn't particularly difficult, but if you're slow to cure confused, you can end up in a bit of trouble. GFs will perfectly dispose of these Galbaldian soldiers. When prompted to set a time limit, you should consider that you will have to fight random battles during your evacuation, and you also have a boss to fight. I recommend 20 minutes for an average level party. The BGH can deal big physical damage, so your first priority is to cast Protect on your whole team. I also suggest Haste, as you are still battling against a time limit. Like most mechanical foes, the BGH is susceptible to lightning magic, summon Quetzalcoatl and spam doubled thunders. You'll need to keep one ally on something of a standby to keep Protect up, and cure is required. The character summoning Quetzalcoatl should never begin to summon without Protect, or face the chance of your summoning being instantly wiped out. Once the weapon is destroyed, you'll have to fight a few Galbaldians, but they're no threat. Things have taken a turn for the worse at Balam Garden. You'll most likely find that your score is in the early level 20s, which means you can encounter some second tier adversaries. It can be tempting to sit back and stock up on level 2 spells, but once score hits those level 30s in none too short of a time, you'll be obtaining level 3 spells fairly quickly, so don't sacrifice too much time stocking every new spell you come across. To progress the story, visit each annex of Garden and fight the Garden Assistance creatures. Once you've visited each area, head back to the entrance where you'll bump into Q. Follow Q upstairs to the second floor and just past the classroom from the beginning of the game. Talk with Q and she'll direct you to the headmaster. After talking with Sid, you'll get your next objective. Head back into the elevator and proceed down. When the elevator becomes stuck, observe the suspicious hatch on the floor. The game will remind you about elemental attacks and junctioning elemental spells to your weapons. At this stage in the game, spells and summonings are still the way to go, so don't worry about it just yet. The maintenance area is quite straightforward. There's no need to backtrack, and as far as battles go, as Score mentioned earlier, most enemies here are weak to fire, so summon Ifrit for a quick fight. Near the save point, pull the lever and prepare yourself before heading up to the newly opened doors. Make sure your HPs are full. This next boss is tough. The oil boil bosses deal large amounts of damage. Hopefully you've set up your party so that all your characters are able to junction magic to their HP. Like all other enemies here, the oil boils are weak to fire. Summon Ifrit and doubled fire or firers. Buff with haste and steer clear of physicals, as the oil boils can blind you. They don't have a lot of HP, but what they lack in defense, they make up for in offense. So play cautious and dedicate a single character to healing and keep them on standby. For your troubles, you'll receive some more Wizard Stones, perfect for making some level 3 spells to boost your DPS or HP. We're now going to skim over the large amounts of story that are coming up. The Norg boss fight has one gimmick. His pod comes equipped with 2 orbs that start blue, then turn yellow, and then red. When the orbs are red, they will begin to cast powerful magic against your party. It is important to dedicate one party member to dealing with the orbs. It doesn't matter how much damage they can do, you just need to continuously strike the orbs. Haste, Double and Shell are useful spells here, but remember, Shell will reduce the amount of HP you can restore with spells. Norg is initially well protected behind a bulkhead that takes very little damage from magic or physical attacks. Nevertheless, maintain your assault and it'll soon be destroyed. You can now attack Norg, whom is weak to air magic, but you may not have had the chance to draw arrow spells yet. Make sure you draw Leviathan from Norg. Again, you won't get another chance to obtain this GF until the last dungeon. Pummel Norg with spells. Overall, he isn't that imposing. He will try to debuff you with silence, so counter with Asuna. Remember to keep on top of the orbs or face the assault of a magical attack. When you reach Fisherman's Horizon, head to the mayor's house in the centre of town. As you try to leave, you'll learn that Galbaldian forces have appeared in town. It's time to clean up. The Galbaldians you'll face in Fisherman's Horizon are perfect for finishing your stock of spells like Protect and Esuna. After saving the mayor from the Galbaldian soldiers, Skull & Co. will have to face off against the remnants of the BGH. It still packs a punch, but this time its HP pool is very small. If you refine from Dagger from your Wizard Stone pile, here is a good time to use them under the buff double. Quetzalcoatl 2 is handy, don't fret too much, it won't take long to destroy the BGH for good. Head back to Balaam and you'll bump into Irvin. Then head to the Garden Events area. Once you obtain control of Garden, head back to Balaam Town. The entire town is now under Galbaldian occupation. Talk to the soldier by the signpost and you can talk your way in. Proceed to the hotel where you'll learn about the captain and the commander. It's time to find the captain. At the train station, you'll learn that the captain likes fishing. Head to the harbour and talk to the soldier with the dog. Now head to Zell's house and explore the kitchen. You'll now be covered in the scent of the food. Head back to the harbour and talk to the dog. You can now follow the pooch all the way to the train station where it'll chase Ragin out of the train. Follow them back to the hotel and you'll be forced into a battle. Ragin has powerful physical attacks, so buff with Protect. He has one glaring weakness however, and that is that you can put him to sleep, rendering him pretty much inert. Use GFs in the first part of this battle to quickly finish off the Galbaldian soldiers before focusing your attacks on Ragin. Do not use thunder attacks as he will absorb the damage. Blizzard and fire spells work very well here. Upon entering the hotel and confronting Fujin, you'll be forced into another battle with both her and Ragin. Ragin is the same boss you've just fought. Put him to sleep and nuke him with Blazara and fire. As for Fujin, draw the GF Pandemonium and hit her with your strongest physical attacks. She is immune to wind, but it's doubtable you'll have many arrow spells. Buffing with Protect will cut down most of the damage you'll receive, though as usual, you'll want to use double so you can heal your party quicker after Fujin has used one of her powerful magic spells. Now that you've added Pandemonium to your list, you should have a rounded out team of 3 with magic junction to HP, Strength, Vitality, Magic and Spirit. Whilst Vitality and Spirit have the least noticeable effects, they're still worth investing in. The initial Galbaldia Garden attack is very scripted. The paratroopers you'll face hold Arrow and Water Magic, which are useful spells to stock up on, especially Arrow. Show caution though, as the paratroopers like to inflict statuses on your party. Once you've entered Galbaldia Garden, your goal is to reach the auditorium at the top of the building. In order to get there, you'll have to explore the entire garden, finding keycards from students hiding in dormrooms and classes. Galbaldia Garden also has quite a few powerful enemies with some worth drawing spells. Life from Creepers, Dispel from Deathclaws, and Haste from the GIM 52As. To find the first card, head up to the second floor and head left. You'll find a student in one of the classrooms with the keycard number 1. This keycard will grant you access to the hockey ring. Across the field there is a doorway to the right. Cross over to the classroom opposite and you'll find your next keycard. You can now enter the door at the top of the stairwell flanked by Ragin and Fujin. Now jump over the wall and down to the lower level. You now have the opportunity to fight Cerberus, a GF. Although optional, it's a battle not really out of your way, and this GF buffs you with double and triple. You'd be mad to miss out on the free triple buff. Cerberus will flip between using powerful all targeting spells to buffing with triple. It does have some powerful physical attacks, but these are easy to heal through. It can also cast Berserk, but if this lands on your high strength character, it can be a small blessing. Just make sure you remove it from your supporting characters. You must not, under any circumstance, allow Cerberus to keep triple up. Healing through 3 quakes or tornadoes is more than likely impossible for you now. If you have spent all your dispel stock, you can stock up from the Deathclaws that appear most often in the area above Cerberus' location. When it comes to DPS, Cerberus has no weaknesses and has a high spirit stat. Use your strongest GFs or physical attacks, and if you're feeling brave, get a party member into critical and spam some limits. If you revive with life, that character will always remain in a critical state. It's a very viable tactic in this battle. From this area, head through the southwestern exit and into the nearby classroom to obtain the final keycard. You can now head to the atrium, access via the stairs to the second floor, north from the main hall. to the left of the rating room you stayed in when you first entered Galbadia Garden. There's not a lot to say about the second battle with Safer. Average physical damage output, no weaknesses, draw cast haste to make things go quicker. After the battle, head across the second floor catwalks above the main hall to access the lecture hall where Edia resides. The second battle with Edia is a different affair from before. Firstly, you'll have to finish off Safer, then the battle begins proper. Draw the GF Alexander immediately, again last chance to do so. Then let's consider Edia's attacks. She uses spells, one in particular, Maelstrom, deals high magic damage and inflicts curse which prevents the usage of limits. Buffing yourself can be a waste of time as Edia is quick to dispel any and all you grant yourself. Otherwise, she will attempt to inflict you with slow, silence and buff herself with reflect. She also really likes to cast death. Unless you've been able to junction death to status defense, this spell will hit 100% of the time. It can work in your favour. Edia is resistant to magic attacks, so it's a good idea to keep one or two of your characters in critical states to spam limits. As long as you keep one character on support for reviving and tanking with Maelstrom attack, this is a very safe strategy to deal a high amount of damage. After you've talked to Edia and Sid at the old orphanage, return to Renoa in the infirmary to start the next dream sequence. You'll be asked to manually select which character will inhabit which of Laguna's compatriots. Naturally, it's a good idea to use the characters that already have the best magic stock to them. To defeat the Ruby Dragon, simply wait for it to do the first move after each action. If it isn't immediately rearing its head, attack, otherwise block. Your first fight with a Ruby Dragon is no reflection on the true power of this enemy. Regardless, buff with Cerberus and spam Blizzara or Blizzarja. Now you have Cerberus, you'll find you can deal far greater damage using tripled spells than you can using your GFs. Once you've finished the dream sequence, return to Edia and she will hint at the whereabouts of the White Seed ship. As mentioned, you can find the White Seed ship in the Citra area. The Salt Flats is a small, simple area. If you have the Move Find ability, you can stock a couple of powerful spells. No noteworthy enemies here, just usual spells to stock up on. Abaddon is not a particularly powerful boss. You can instantly kill it with a full cure spell, but where is the fun in that? It has a very high vitality but low spirit. Although weak to fire, you're better off using Cura or more preferably Curaja. Triple with Cerberus and your DPS will go through the roof. Attack wise, Abaddon uses physicals and is very partial to spamming Confuse. Asuna is once again your go-to debuff spell. This is an easy battle and shouldn't pose much trouble. In the next area, examine the glitching horizon and you'll open up a maintenance chute. Once you gain access to explore Esfa, you can visit the shops or take in the sights and hunt out some hidden draw points. Use the circular pads to fast track to different areas of the city. When you're ready, head to the city exit. You can rent a car to cross the plains of Esfa, but it's worth fighting the enemies for items to refine. The Mesmerized Blades items will allow you to refine Regan spells. This spell will give you the biggest HP boost yet, at max stock, and is also a very good buff for long drawn out battles. Do be warned, Malboros populate these areas and always open the battle with the Bad Breath spell, which, as usual, inflicts more or less every status effect in the game on your entire party. It's a hard attack to recover from, and Malboros have an enormous HP pool. Fortunately, it doesn't seem to reuse this attack for the duration of battle. You'll only be at the shuttle launch base a short while before it's time to return to Esfa. Back in the city, Dr. Odine will explain the process of boarding Lunatic Pandora. It's in your best interest to run from battles and wait at the first stop. There will be plenty of time to fight enemies and stock up spells once you're in the structure. To reach boarding location 1, head outside Odine's lab. At the fork, head straight over. Then take the first right. At the fork, head north. At the junction, take the southeasternmost pathway. When you see a large pair of steps, head up here to reach the first boarding area. From this entrance, you'll have access to 3 elevators. Each one takes you to a different part of Lunatic Pandora. To take the most direct route to your objective, take the elevator number 1. The next hour or so is light on gameplay, so we'll jump straight to the next location. The Ragnarok is occupied by some bizarre monsters. They are incredibly powerful, especially their physical attacks. You really should have at least Kuriga junction to your HP by now, or you may find yourself struggling here. Anyhow, in order to retake control of the ship, you'll have to defeat the monsters. In order to permanently kill them, you must kill each pair subsequently. For example, you must kill the purple first, then find the next purple monster and kill that one. If you kill a monster of another colour, then the previous monster will revive. You cannot escape from battles either, you must evade a monster. Without further ado, here's the route. After taking out the purple monster down the steps, head through the doors ahead and quickly into the doorway on the left, avoiding the red monster. Kill the purple monster in the hangar, and that's our first pair eliminated. Go back into the previous room and take on the red monster. Proceed onwards, ignoring the monster on the lift. Head through the southern doorway and the red monster will ambush you on the catwalk. Afterwards, head south on the catwalk to where you entered the ship from and fight the monster in here. Now return to the lift area and enter the left doorway. Now confront the monster on the lift. Then head back to where you fought the first monster and enter the small rightmost door. With that monster defeated, the ship is yours. When you head back to Esva, you'll find the area is crawling with new and powerful monsters. It's advisable to play cautious. Some of these new enemies have very large HP pools, and you'll end up getting dragged into a long and resource draining fight. On the plus side, this is a good time to leisurely stock some higher end spells. Monsters even overrun the city now. Head to the presidential palace and talk with the president to obtain your next objective. After entering Lunar Pandora for the second time, you'll soon be attacked by Raijin and Fujin looking for revenge. By now you should have a good supply of bio. Both Raijin and Fujin are weak to bio. Triple with Cerberus and start spamming. Fujin likes to buff herself and Raijin with Regan. Remove ASAP to prevent a drawn out battle. I suggest taking out Raijin first, as he does more damage with his physical attacks, where Fujin acts in a minor supportive role. Lunatic Pandora's layout has remained unchanged, although you can now fully explore it. A mixture of enemies appear here now, but in particular the turtle pod is a very viable enemy. It always 100% drops a wizard stone, which you can refine into any level 3 magic, making it a great enemy to farm. To head quickly to your destination, go to the elevator room again and take the first lift. Your next boss is the high-tech mobile Type 8. This boss has 3 parts, its core and its left and right probes. When the boss activates these probes, they begin their own attacks against your party. There is no point to attacking the probes, just focus on the core. This boss has 2 very powerful attacks, but they're not spammed, so it's easy to recover from. The first is Corona, that reduces everyone's HP to 1. It's a scare tactic, as the boss never quickly follows up, and if you have summoned Cerberus, then you can use Triple and Kuriga to fill a heal up. It does however have an attack called Megiddo Flame that deals around 2500 HP damage to your whole party. This move alone means that you should keep everyone's HP topped up. It's a good idea to have one dedicated support character keep their turn on standby, so they're always ready to drop some cures on everyone. You may have found some aura on your travels by now. It's a good time to use it and spam your limits. You can go the risky route and keep one or both characters in critical. As long as your support character can deal with reviving and healing, go at it. Haste is a good choice in this battle, but otherwise stick with Triple and Aura. Safer's final stand is not a great deal harder than his previous attempts. Start with Cerberus and triple everyone with Regan and Protect to mitigate most of his damage. He does deal some considerable physical damage and moves pretty quick, but he doesn't have the best DPS output of any boss. Bio and Flare are your go-to spells for this battle. Adele is a powerful boss. Her turns come around very quickly and she can dish out high amounts of damage. Throughout the entire fight, Adele will draw from Rinoa. Each time she does this, Rinoa loses HP. You must consistently heal Rinoa throughout the entire fight. If she dies, it's game over. You may find you'll benefit from having one party member stand by as your support character, healing everyone as required. All Adele's attacks are magic, so keeping Shell up is paramount. Draw cast Regan onto everybody and as usual, summon Cerberus. If you had the chance, you may have stocked a decent number of flare spells from mobile type 8 boss. Triple and flare is a powerful combo against Adele. Alternatively, if you have any aura spells left over, now is a good time to use them. Zell, Irvin or Squall are perfect characters to be aura'd, as they have the best limit break DPS. Do not use any offensive GFs or multi-targeting spells like Tornado in this battle, as Renoa will be hit also. If you find yourself struggling in this battle, it's a cue letting you know you need to go back and sort your junctions out. Lunatic Pandora is a fairly easy place to stock up on potent spells and get your stats buffed. This next boss battle is a bit long-winded. Basically, you'll fight 3 versions of the sorceresses, each next stage more potent than the last. It's still not a very difficult battle regardless. The first variant is rather weak and can easily be defeated with physical attacks. They only use low level magic also. The second variant has more HP and likes to use Meltdown to reduce your vitality to 0. They will also attempt to buff themselves with triple and spam high level magic. The final variant has a very high vitality, but is still more susceptible to physical attacks than spells. Using limit breaks at this point is good choice for high DPS, or you can summon Cerberus and use triple flares. This boss will generally hit you with powerful physical attacks, whilst the countdown ticks down to a blast of Ultima, which can deal over 2000 HP damage to your entire party. You can stock Holy and Flare from this variant, and I highly recommend tanking the boss's attacks until you can stock a reasonable amount of each spell. You don't have to max your stock for junctioning, although that will really help with the next area, but at least enough to use consistently against bosses. The final area of the game is Ultramisia's Castle. You'll fight a wide variety of enemies in this area, including all the newly appearing enemies from the Lunar Cry. Stock up on missing spells and finish obtaining potent abilities. You can also travel to parts of the overworld and collect the remaining GFs you may have missed. Ultramisia's Castle seals your abilities as soon as you enter. However, when you leave, you'll regain all your lost abilities. Each time you defeat a boss within the castle, you'll be allowed to unlock an ability of your choosing. Which abilities you prioritize is totally up to you, but it's wise to use your first choices to unlock magic, GF and the save command. Personally, I find the command abilities not very useful in this game, and so I only fought all but one of the bosses in Ultramisia's Castle before proceeding to the final boss area. The Sphinxer is the first boss you'll likely come face to face with. It's not a particularly intimidating foe. It summons allies to assist its damage output. Leave the summoned monsters alone. Each time you defeat one, Sphinxer will summon another, more stronger foe to take its place. Tank the boss's attacks and spam your own. After you deal a certain amount of damage, the Sphinxer mask will fly off and it will begin to use status spells. You can still dodge your magic to your stats, so make sure you cover your weaknesses such as Confuse, Blind or Sleep. The next recommended boss is Trauma. It will generate 2 adds at the start of battle that will deal the majority of the DPS. Trauma has a high vitality, but you can draw Meltdown from it. Meltdown reduces a target's vitality to 0, rendering them vulnerable to physical attacks. Stock up on this spell and then cast it on Trauma. You can easily deal with this boss once you've reduced its vitality. The only other attack to note is its Mega Pulse Cannon that deals high magic damage against your entire party. Next is the Red Giant. It exclusively uses powerful physical attacks, but your party should be more than capable of tanking through the damage. You will need access to cure spells to survive this battle, so don't initiate this one if you haven't done so. The Red Giant is vulnerable to Demi and Meltdown, but you can also use triple with Flare or Holy for good DPS. You'll need magic unlocked to deal with Tripoint. It's weak to fire, but once struck with the spell, its weakness will switch to ice. As you attack it with each element, its vulnerability will alternate. If you use the incorrect spell, Tripoint will hit you with its powerful Mega Spark attack. Triple and the relevant spell, preferably a level 3 spell, is the best method to use in this battle. Krista is up next. This is a very easy fight. Krista has very defensive stats, even to magic. You can exploit its vitality with Meltdown, however. The boss will counter any physical attack with its own magic blast. The attack is easy to heal through though. You should also keep your HPs up as Krista uses Ultima upon defeat, and that can wipe your party out. The Gargantor battle starts innocently with a familiar enemy. Once dealt with, Gargantor reveals its full self. It's another easy one-dimensional battle. It has a chance to counter physical attacks and likes to cast Berserk on your party. It also uses Evil Eye, which deals a small amount of damage and inflicts Curse. Triple Unholy is the combo to use. It deals massive damage to this boss and will see the battle ended quickly. Tiamat is the last boss I recommend fighting. That's mainly because, in my opinion, there is no point in locking the command ability as mentioned before. You have far better methods at this point of the game for healing and dealing DPS without spending time to fight Ketobles. Anywho, Tiamat has only one attack, Dark Flare. This move is on a timer and Tiamat will do absolutely nothing in between. Granted, Dark Flare can instantly wipe out your party, but with the defense of Shell, that will cut the damage down by 50%. To end things quickly, use Meltdown and Aura to start a flurry of limit breaks. Tiamat has a huge pool of HP, so using Zell, Skulls or Irvine's limits will help end this battle very quickly. Draw the GF Eden from Tiamat if you haven't found it yet. It's a good GF for rounding out your stats. So finally we confront Ultimecia. She certainly isn't making anything easy. There are 4 phases to this final battle. Also, Ultimecia will pick your party at random. Every time a character dies, if they are not immediately revived, they will disappear permanently from the battle. When all 6 characters are removed, it's game over. Ultimecia's first phase isn't difficult. She uses Maelstrom, similar to Diablos' Gravager, to reduce your HP to critical levels. She also has access to level 3 spells Stop, Bio and Meltdown, as soon as any debuffs, and Keep Shell up. She does dispel buffs, but don't hesitate to summon Cerberus again. Triple with Flare is a good combo for DPS, or alternatively, use your own Meltdown and physical assaults. The second phase is against Ultimecia's GF Griever. This is your last chance to use your GFs. In the following battle they will be instantly KO'd. Griever can remove an entire stock of a spell from one of your characters. The spell removed is random. Unfortunately, you'll just have to deal with the RNG. It also likes to buff itself with triple, which you should immediately dispel. You must keep Shell up at all times. Towards the end of the battle, Griever will use Shockwave Pulsar, a magic attack that has the potential to wipe your party out. Shell will reduce that damage by 50%. As for DPS, Griever is incredibly weak to Holy, and an assault of spell tripled will end this battle very quickly. In the next form, Ultimecia will dungeon Griever to herself. This boss will summon adds to the battle, but you can largely ignore them. You can also no longer summon GFs as they will be instantly KO'd. This form also uses forbidden magic against you, such as Holy, Flare and Meteor, so make sure Shell is always up. It'll also protect you from Great Attract, a powerful magic attack that can deal over 3000 HP damage to your entire party. You can use Flare tripled, but I suggest using Meltdown and then buffing your party with Aura. Spamming limits is going to be your best DPS you can output from this point on. At last, Ultimecia's final form. It's actually a rather easy battle. She likes to use Hell's Judgment, a scare tactic that reduces everyone's HP to 1. She never follows this attack up, leaving you ample time to cure everyone. Regardless, it's a good idea to always have a character on standby to drop Curiga on the party. Like previous forms, she can erase your stock magic. She also uses forbidden magic, mainly Holy and Ultima. Shell will cut all this damage down however, so keep the buff up. She will attempt to dispel your characters from time to time. I really advise that you recast triple. In fact, if you draw Ultima from anywhere in Ultimecia's castle, now is a good time to use it. It deals considerably good damage compared to spells like Flare. You don't need to use Aura in this fight, as you can exploit Hell's Judgment. Whilst your support character is completing the Curiga animation, you'll have more than enough time to action your limit breaks. Towards the end of the battle, a timer will appear. If the countdown reaches 0, Ultimecia will use Apocalypse, the most powerful spell in the game. This spell will very likely wipe your party out. I suggest exclusively spamming your limit breaks as soon as the timer appears to deal maximum damage. That's it, with Ultimecia defeated, the game is won. Congratulations, give yourself a pat on the back, you've just finished Final Fantasy VIII. I hope you enjoyed this edition of the ABC Game Guides. Remember to hit the like button and visit the loveofgaming.co.uk blog for gaming articles and more ABC guides. Thanks for watching.